Hey guys, welcome back for another Jedi Journal entry. Today we will look at the Jedi Mind Trick and the ethical use of mind manipulation. Can mind control be used for a good purpose? I talked about this very question in one of my earlier videos about the Jedi training and virtues, but it's an interesting topic I think deserves its own video. I will link that video at the end of this one as well in case you are interested in hearing about the Jedi way of life and philosophy, and you'll be able to check that out at the end. Can mind control be used for a good purpose? Are the Jedi still good if they control the minds of others? Are they still letting those sentient beings exercise their free will? Is it truly mind control, or is it something more mundane? These are difficult questions to deal with when looking at the Jedi and just what they are capable of doing. However, there are some important aspects to the Jedi and the mind trick itself that we should pay attention to. The Jedi Mind Trick, first and foremost, is essentially a suggestion, or a kind of targeted persuasion. It is not outright mind control. We know that the mind trick can be ignored because it does not work on everyone, as the Jedi tell us multiple times in the saga. It is a suggestion that can be answered or ignored, but is more difficult to ignore if you are what the Jedi refer to as weak-minded. The weak-minded would be those who are more susceptible to manipulation, or those who do not have an impetus towards independent thinking or their own development. We all know people like this in our daily lives who take everything told to them by others or that they see on social media as forthright truth and believe it wholeheartedly. What we can derive from this is that the Jedi mind trick is not mind control so much as an advanced form of neurolinguistic persuasion. An equivalent in the real world would be a smooth talker who can change people's minds through conversation. Since this Jedi mind trick is not mind control, but rather a targeted persuasion, we can still raise the question if it is morally acceptable to use such strong influence on others. But it is important to note that our free-thinking opinions are influenced all the time by things around us. These can be things like ads, social media, the news, friends, teachers, family, mentors, movies, and music. Influence then becomes an inevitability, especially to the weak-minded, and thus it is to be regarded as a responsibility by those who create influence. This is a responsibility to make sure that the influence goes toward the highest good and not toward what is best for oneself. And not only that this influence go toward the highest good, but that in doing so it still affords the influencee their own choice to accept or refuse the influence. That those influencees should not be dominated, but given the respect of an autonomous being. The Jedi do not dominate the minds of others, but rather use a heightened level of persuasion that can influence others toward a higher moral good if they so choose to accept it. In the case of Obi-Wan and Sleazebag Anno, yes, that's his name, in the club during the chase scene in Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan Kenobi leaves the Death Stick dealer a choice. He does not tell him to quit Death Sticks outright, but convinces him instead that he does not want to sell Obi-Wan Death Sticks and then to go home and rethink his life. There is no command or dominance coming from Obi-Wan to force this sentient being into doing something other than step back and refocus his efforts toward a higher moral value. The final decision for the Death Stick dealer to stop being such is left to him and not to Obi-Wan. So again, the mind trick is not for outright mind control. By the way, Sleazebag Anno is played by Matt Doran, who also played Mouse from the first Matrix movie, and in that same scene is the famous woman in the red dress that can be seen giving Anakin a seductive glance as he peruses the club. In the Matrix, she was a program designed by Mouse to be a distraction for new freedom fighters in the training simulations, as well as for other deviant purposes, as when he offers Neo some private time with her over breakfast. She gives Anakin the same look she gave Neo, but unlike Neo, Anakin is not distracted, likely due to his love for Padme as well as his Jedi training. Qui-Gon's use of the Jedi mind trick in The Phantom Menace is often brought up as an argument against the Jedi's supposed moral philosophy. Qui-Gon is known for being a rogue within the Jedi Order and does not follow the will of the Council or busy himself with the tenets of the Jedi Code to the letter, opting instead to follow the will of the Force itself. While he still participates in the corrupt systems that are the prequel-era Jedi Order and the Republic, he chooses to do it in his own way, informed by his connection to the Force. Some say that this makes Qui-Gon a gray Jedi, but this is not so. If anything, this makes Qui-Gon a normal Jedi, while the others are part of the corrupt and flawed Jedi Order. These corrupt Jedi are more focused on being textbook Jedi and serving the Republic than they are in serving the Force, which is the true mandate of being a Jedi. His use of the mind trick on Watto to accept his form of currency is rebuffed by the Toydarian, and Qui-Gon doesn't press the matter further. I would point out that while Qui-Gon was offering a currency not commonly seen in the area, he was still offering to pay Watto for the parts he needed. He did not force Watto to give the parts over to him for free, despite being in a hurry to save the people of Naboo. And when Watto refused the suggestion, he let him be and went in search of an alternative. In a real-world sense, it would be similar to trying to smooth-talk your way into a better price at the store. The moral philosophy of Immanuel Kant revolves around the idea that your actions derive from a maxim or a moral rule, and that all actions revolve around the setup of a maxim, a situation, and a conclusion. Since you cannot know the conclusion and you cannot know the situation, all you have in your control is your maxim. Similar to Stoic philosophy in that one cannot control the situations one finds themselves in, but one can always control their response within that situation. I talked about this in my video on Stoicism in Star Wars, which I will link at the end of the video as well. The question then becomes, which maxims should we live by? To answer this question, Kant poses two main ideas to find the answer. One is the Universalizability Principle, and the second is referred to as the principle of respect for persons. Universalizability deduces that you should always act according to a maxim that you could will to become a universal moral law. So as an example, the principle of honesty and always telling the truth is a valid maxim because one would not want to live in a world full of liars. And jumping off of that, we should have respect for persons and always treat them as ends in themselves rather than as a means only. Following the same example, lies treat people as a means rather than as an end, as lying implies the person is a thing to be manipulated and not a person with intrinsic value that has a right to the truth. This is not saying that we can't ever treat each other as a means, which we do all of the time. In an everyday scenario, you might use a cashier as a means to buy your groceries, and the cashier is using you as a means to have a job. But in those times when we use each other as a means to an end, we should go about the exchange or interaction as though that other person has value, and treat them as an end in themselves. These ideas also carry the requirement that you act out of your own good will, and that it be a free act. This is in keeping with the Jedi Mind Trick, as it is used as a suggestion, while still having respect for the target's autonomy rather than outright domination. The Sith, however, might have a different view. Thinking inwards and focusing on themselves only at the expense of regarding others as free, independent beings, but rather seeing them as resources to be used or obstacles to be eliminated, the Sith do not care to allow others to exercise their own free will. Were the Sith to use a mind trick, they would have no qualms about turning that suggestion into an inescapable command. The Sith might treat their target as a means and not as a value or end in themselves. Qui-Gon too respects the free will of other beings when it comes to using his Jedi persuasion abilities. Earlier, Qui-Gon used his persuasion on the Gungans to get transportation to the city of Theed, as they were in a hurry to reach the Queen before the invasion force did. But then, when they return with the Queen to broker a peace with the Gungans, Qui-Gon adamantly states to Obi-Wan that they cannot intervene and must let the Naboo and the Gungans do this on their own. In the first two instances, Qui-Gon seems to follow an ends justify the means approach, while in the second, Qui-Gon respects that the choice to make peace between two societies must be left to the two parties and cannot be imposed by a central authority like the Jedi or Republic. Obi-Wan's use of the mind trick in the original Star Wars movie when he and Luke are stopped by the stormtroopers is a classic use of the mind trick by a Jedi who seeks to use non-violent means of conflict resolution. It is preferential to use a mind trick over the direct use of force as it respects another's right to life. And being that the Jedi base their lives around serving the Force and cultivating the symbiosis of all life in the galaxy, to take life is not something they seek to do. This does not mean the Jedi are pacifists, as is sometimes argued, but rather that they do not seek to instigate or prolong conflict. The Jedi use the Force for knowledge and defense, not for attack. They will draw their swords to defend others or to end conflict, but they do so without the vice of aggression. We see the same thing with Luke in Return of the Jedi when he uses his mind trick on both Bib Fortuna and Jabba the Hutt. His Jedi ability for targeted persuasion is utilized as a means of non-violent conflict resolution. Jabba has his friends, and Luke, having grown up on Tatooine, knows what kind of vile person Jabba is, and so chooses to use his Jedi skills to try to broker a peaceful exchange. Luke even makes the offer multiple times to Jabba to pursue peaceful negotiation instead of outright conflict. His hologram appearance is political speak for, let's do this like civil people and I won't have to destroy you. He tells Jabba in the throne room to bargain or be destroyed, and when Jabba has them at the Sarlacc pit he makes the offer yet again. Jabba is a hard sell throughout their encounter, and so using the Jedi mind trick to soften him to avoid conflict is not unusual. Only when faced with execution for both himself and his friends does Luke make his move and single-handedly defeat Jabba's army. Is mind manipulation okay if it is used for a good purpose? Hard to say, given that everyone who does so would think they were using it for a good purpose. Some might say that every individual has intrinsic value, and thus their free will should not be tampered with in any way. But on the other hand, our free-thinking opinions are influenced all the time by things around us, and thus it is to be regarded as a responsibility by those who create this inevitable influence. This is a responsibility to make sure that the influence goes toward the highest good and not toward what is best for oneself. And not only that this influence go toward the highest good, but that in doing so it still affords the influencee their own choice to accept or refuse the influence. That those influencees should not be dominated, but given the respect of an autonomous being and be allowed to make their own decision whether it is viewed as right or wrong. The Jedi do not dominate the minds of others, but rather use a heightened level of persuasion that can influence others toward a higher good, if they so choose to accept it. The Jedi also utilize this persuasion as a means of non-violent conflict resolution whenever they can. What are your thoughts on the Jedi mind trick? Do you think it is okay for the Jedi to use it? Would you use it if you could use the Force? Do you think it is distinctly different from persuading someone to do something over the course of a conversation? Let me know down below. Well, this concludes my thoughts on the Jedi mind trick. If you enjoyed what I had to say, click the like button down below, subscribe for more of my content, which should be coming soon. If you want to receive notifications of when that will be, hit the little bell icon down below as well so you won't miss the next one. Thank you for sticking around, and I'll see you all next time. May the Force be with you.